So
Yeah.
tell us what about Katona Classic Stage and how you got involved with it.
Oh, hi. Yeah. This was kind of a dream of mine for I don't know 30 years, and I thought if I ever got out of Manhattan and or the Upper West Side or Hell's Kitchen, whatever area I was in, and found the right little town or the place that maybe this could work. Because before As the World Turns and before all that, I kind of cut my teeth doing what they call regional theater, which is any theater outside of New York, all over the country. So Shakespeare and all kinds of other things. And I loved it, and it was a lot of fun. And but once I started my family and things like this, like I can't leave for 2 months to go to Milwaukee or wherever.
Right.
Anyway, eventually we stumbled into this town by accident. My wife and I, we had a 10-month-old in tow at the time and added a daughter about a year later. And so, when you have kids that young, your world's very small. And so I would do some gigs in New York or LA, and then I'd just be here. And then, I don't know, 2019, I kind of came up for air and I looked around and I said, this is it. I'm in the right spot. This is the perfect place. It's a community that supports the arts. We have a big music festival here. We have a fine arts museum. There's all kinds of cultural things. There's all kinds of cool things when you're this close to New York and this part of the world. There's like stuff from the Revolutionary War, and there's stuff, and there's all kinds of really great sort of homesteads, and there's horse country. I mean, there's a lot of cool stuff.
Right.
So I started it, and then 2 days before our first big sort of gala fundraiser, everything shut down for COVID. So we could have just quit, but I knew I was in the right spot. I thought if we can survive this. So we kind of pivoted and we started a film festival because it was the only way we could engage with people. And the reason we could is that we have all this open space. And we asked what it is called, the John Jay Homestead. John Jay is very famous. And it's a big thing of land. And I said, listen, if people can they drive up in their cars on your land and stay in their cars? And if we put up a big blow up screen, can we do a film festival here? And they said, yeah, no one's coming here because everyone's scared to get out of their house. So then I went to a cinema and no one was going to the cinema. And they said, we'll find the blow up screen and we'll bring the popcorn. And so we started this in 2020. And it turns out we were one of the only like in-person film festivals in the world. Everyone else had gone to Zoom and online and streaming. So everybody wants their film to be seen in person. So we had like 450 submissions from all over the planet, which we were not prepared for. I didn't start this out as a film festival. I wanted to be a theater company. So that just kind of took off, and it kind of put us in people's consciousness. We're about to have this Saturday will be our 5th annual one. But anyway, we stuck it out. We just stuck it out, and people supported us. And once the vaccine came along, we were able to get going. And now we're really moving. We have a beautiful theater that we're in residence at up here. We do lots of readings. We do Shakespeare classes for kids, and it's a lot of fun. So
you're in
it's just a dream. It's a dream come, like you said, with what your site, it's like a dream come true for me to do this. Yeah.
So it's you're in Bedford. Katona is in Bedford.
Yeah, Bedford. It's just like Bedford Falls from It's a Wonderful Life. Like everything up here is right out of a Jimmy Stewart movie. It's terrific, and very quaint and cute and all that kind of stuff. And so Katona, there's 3 hamlets: Katona, Bedford Hills, and Bedford Village. There's no test on that, but they're all part of the same town of Bedford. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And your film festival this year starts this Saturday, August 10th, right?
Yeah. It's exciting. We had some people like Abigail Breslin, who's an Academy Award nominee. Her team reached out to us and said, can we be in your festival? I said, yeah, you could be in our festival, sure. And then one of our friends is a cinematographer, and he shot a new film with Amy Sedaris, who a lot of people know, a very funny woman. And he said, can I put it in there? I was like, yeah, you can totally. I'd be happy to have that. So we have some really good, it's all short films. It's all, a short film collection. Like I said, it wasn't our initial goal. Our goal to make this big. We were not trying to be Tribeca or Southwest or something like this. But it's turned out to be a cool thing for the community. And I think too, another thing was during pandemic and all this stuff, there was a lot of young people that had nothing to do, but they had really expensive cameras in their pocket, and they had access to incredible editing software online. So we really encouraged young people to just be creative in their house, while they were. And so that kind of idea has stuck with it. So there's a lot of we often get a lot of young filmmakers as well. So
Cool. So how many films in the film festival?
with this year, normally we get much shorter ones. We got some much longer ones this year. So we only have 8, but they're much longer than the normal. Normally they're like 5-10 minutes. These are a bit longer, kind of long form. And but you can get a lot more, you can tell a bigger story that way.
And is it Saturday and Sunday?
It's just Saturday.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just Saturday. We like I said, we've thought about expanding it, and people have asked us to expand it and have more, and we might do that. I just have to hire people to help because I don't have any more bandwidth to do it. I'm in the theater. I'm like, oh yeah, we got to make. People are sending us movies, so I think it's on the list of things to do, is to expand it.
Right. And you're trying to raise $8,500 by the end of this week for your fall theater show.
That's correct. And thank you for mentioning that. We've done very, very well. And then we went into some cost overruns in the spring, and then we didn't get some of the grant and fundraising stuff we thought we were going to get. We normally get it, and we just didn't this year. There's no guarantees. And it's such a beautiful, beautiful show. And I just thought, timing wise, just in terms of, the world's crazy and people are angry and all this sort of stuff. And it's a play that's very much about people who are very different coming together, and being very empathetic and finding common ground. It has nothing to do with politics or anything like that. It's just I thought it'd be a really beautiful thing for people to share because I'm very moved by it. So I thought it'd be a nice thing.
Okay. And you have a total of $15,000 that you hope to raise.
A total of 15 that we hope to raise, yes. But the way it works, because I hire professional people, they get paid, and you pay their pension and health and all this sort of stuff. The paymaster, the union, all that, they need that money up front. They want to make sure that you're not going to say, I promise to pay you, and then after the first weekend of performance you skip town, which is how it used to be 100 years ago. That's why unions were invented in the theater. So you have to have all the money up front. Normally we have that. This year we don't. So that's what we're trying to raise money for. I don't know if you have links or anything like that, but we can definitely put them up there.
I will put everything up.
Oh, you're the best. Thank you.
And I will tell people about it everywhere.
Oh, thanks.
Everywhere
that's so sweet.
I can.
Thank you.
Well, that's what I'm here for. Your fall show is a case for the existence of God, right? But it's not religious or anything like that.
No, and it's very interesting you say that, because there are people that have come up to me who are religious. Say, oh, is this play for us? And I'm like, it is, but it's not about God. And then other people are like, oh, I don't know, is it like religious? Like, I don't want to have to be preached at. Like, no, it's not that at all. I think I know what the playwright means, but it's not what you think it is in that respect. It's ultimately, this is not a spoiler. It's about 2 men who feel really lost in the world. And the thing that brings them together is they both want to be incredible fathers to their daughters. And sounds like it wouldn't be very dramatic. It's incredibly dramatic. And you really root for these guys. And it's not, villains in black hats that come along that make things worse. It's kind of life, So I thought that was really applicable today. They feel very isolated. A lot of people feel isolated. They feel like the world's kind of against them. And these guys find common ground and help each other. And that's why I think that's what the author meant. But he doesn't write religious plays or anything. He's most famous for writing a play called The Whale, which got turned into a movie with Brendan Fraser, and he won an Academy Award for that. So that's the same writer. So if that gives you a sense of his style, he writes very simple, very small pieces that somehow reach a much broader topic. And kind of universally reach people about empathy.
Right.
Yeah.
And how many plays do you usually have in a year?
Right now we do 2 plays, a spring play and a fall play. We do a lot of readings. We have the film festival. We do classes. And then we're hoping next year, but it may be too early, to start doing outdoor Shakespeare festivals. That's how I cut my teeth. And it's so beautiful. If you go outside, you see Midsummer Night's Dream under the stars. That's in my early career and early 20s. I did so much of that all over the country. And it's just magical. People love it.
Yeah, well, I'm from San Diego, and we have the Old Globe there, so.
Oh, of course. Yeah, Old Globe, and I think there's La Jolla is out there, pretty close, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, Michael Park was just out of La Jolla with
Oh,
Dina
nice.
Menzel. I just spoke to Michael like 2 days ago,
Oh, he's great.
and he's great. And they're bringing that show that was at La Jolla out there. They're bringing it to Broadway in the
Oh,
spring, or
cool.
actually February, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, he was
So you
great.
have,
Did you see Stranger Things when he was in that? That was great.
yeah, yeah. It was so. Did he tell you his? I don't know if you spoke to him because I
Yeah,
had David Harbour out here too.
I love him.
Um, Yeah, I love him too. And he came out and did a fundraiser for us, which was so nice of him because it's so busy. And I
Right.
guess the story was that Michael, because David was always this sort of as it turns, he was kind of the background for me and Michael, all our shenanigans. And then David usually arrested me or something. But he didn't have a big role. He was on there for a long time. It was a great start to his career. So I guess when Michael booked Stranger Things, he went down to Atlanta and David was in his trailer. And Michael decided to surprise him. So he starts knocking on his door. And David said, I'm busy, go away, or something like this. Not in a mean way, but and Michael said, I'm not, and he goes, I am not available. So finally, Michael banged so hard that David opened up the door. And then, you, buddy, you're on my show now. I was on your show for years, but now you're on mine. In a very funny way. I mean, Michael tells it much better than I do, but there's such a long history there, and all of us kind of started out together as very young men, and it's great to see what both of them have done. I'm thrilled.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
So are you planning, will you be in the play in the spring? I know you're not in the fall play. Will you be acting in the spring play?
Yes, yeah, I'll be acting in the spring play. I really wanted to direct this fall play, and I'm also just not quite right for the roles anyway. I found that I love doing that too.
Okay.
I love the directing part. I love the producing part way more than I thought I would. I looked at producers of other theater and television. I looked at the stress that our executive producers and our producers were at as the world turns, and I was like, I never want to be under that amount of pressure. But I find that I really love it because you get to bring all these different elements, all these different artists that design things and build things and act and direct and put them all together as a team. And I really like it. It's very creative. So I will be acting in the spring. We just got the rights to the show we want to do. We're just waiting for the funding to come through, but hopefully we can announce that very soon.
Oh, great. And let's see, anything else you'd like to tell people about Katonah Classic Stage?
Well, if you're first of all, we're very close to New York. So if you're in the city, come on up and see us. And I think we get tremendous talent. Our goal was we bring Broadway to you. And I am able to get, partly because I've been in the business for 30 years, I can call in some favors. But all the people we get are just top notch. And I think if you're outside of New York, and if you're in Westchester in particular, you can come here, you can park for free. The ticket prices are closer to off Broadway than they are to Broadway. And I'm getting this incredible talent. And because I have kind of short contracts, there are people that, they have a break during their TV series, or they're not filming until for another month, or,
Right.
The Broadway show doesn't start in rehearsal. So I get really great people because my contracts are short, and I'm doing plays they've always wanted to do, but they ended up, like I said, booking a series, or life happened and they never got a chance to do it. So I would say the talent level is just off the chain up here. And I'm very proud of that.
That's great.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you played Henry Coleman, one of my favorite characters on As the World Turns.
Yeah.
I just love Henry, and I love the way you played him. And you're so great at both comedy and drama. And it's from talking to you, I can tell that you're very funny in real life too. So that part's probably easier for you.
Yeah.
So do you still get recognized from soap fans?
Sure, I do. And it's always nice because the show's been off the air for 13 years, and I'm like, oh God, I haven't aged too much,
No.
But I do. And it's really rewarding. I know you've probably heard this from other people from daytime, but I didn't appreciate this at the time. But I remember the first time I got recognized in the city, this is probably 99, 2000, something like that. These young women, like 17 or 18, came up and said, hey, are you Henry Coleman? And I said, oh yeah, I was on a subway. And then their parents came over and then their grandmother came over,
Oh,
and the whole family. And what I didn't get, and I totally get now, is that I don't know how many times people have come and said, I started watching that show with my mother or my grandmother on their knee, a million years ago. It's this generational connection that almost no other television show has, I mean, only daytime really has that because of
yeah.
the span. And so it really reminds people of a part of their lives
Mhm.
in a way that, most series can't boast of doing.
Right.
And I think I didn't realize how special that was when I was in it,
Mhm.
and now I'm like, that was really cool to be a part of and to be
Right.
a part of for a while. I was on there for a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm
That's
proud of it.
neat.
It was
That's
cool.
neat. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think I have a theory that the reason they still have some soaps on the air, even though they're still very low rated now, is that there are people in charge of the networks whose parents or grandparents or aunts won't let them say, "Don't you cancel my soap."
That is a great theory. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know. It's weird. I don't know how all the machinations work, but
Right.
because some of these networks then have their online streamers, like NBC has
Mhm.
Peacock and stuff like this.
Yeah.
Seems like there's an opportunity there because the fan base is still really strong.
Well,
And
they moved Days of Our Lives to Peacock.
yeah, yeah.
So that I think that's been successful because they keep renewing it. So I assume.
Yeah, I know they did that, and I know there's talk of this new soap out on the West Coast, right? Which sounds
Right.
really exciting.
And I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be on CBS, not a streamer. I mean, it'll be on a streamer eventually, but that's
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think there's enough people, probably people that watch what you're doing,
Mhm.
that really want this,
Yeah.
And I think there was a period. I know we kind of went off the air because another talk show came on, and then I was like, how many talk shows can you have?
That's
It's
right.
much cheaper to produce. And I'm not
Yeah, that's
this
why.
in talk shows, but if all you're flipping through the channels and that's all you got is more people sitting around talking, I was like, people want a story. They want good stories,
Right.
and yeah, so I think the audience is still very much there. I really do.
I think so too. And well, this new one is African American. So
Mhm.
both and not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera, which is a first for days.
Yeah,
And I think there's a huge audience there because they do watch a lot of daytime
they
stuff.
do. They do. I got
They do
recognized
it
all the
right.
time. Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a great demographic, and I think they absolutely, there's people out there like that love the show, and I
Mhm.
think they have a chance to broaden that demographic as much as they want to, as much as they choose to. Yeah.
Right, right, definitely. And so you did a short stint on General Hospital
Mhm.
on in 2016. I'm sure I wasn't the only fan disappointed that you didn't return and have a more regular role because it was fun to watch you.
It was fun, and I think who was there was a writer out there that had been on World Turns and then moved out there, and oh my God, I'm going to kill myself. I'm going to remember as soon as we stop this interview, who was ending her term. I don't know if she was retiring or just
Oh, okay.
changing jobs, GH. And she said, "My part of my swan song is I wanted to write something for you," which is about the highest
Oh,
compliment you can get.
wow, that's nice.
So I don't think it was ever meant to be a very long-term thing. It was just something fun and just come in and burn hot real fast
Mhm.
for, a few episodes and then out. But I had such a good time out there, especially because like Maura was out there and John Lindstrom and Roger eventually went out there. So there was people I knew
Mhm.
already, and then the rest of the team out there were great.
Yeah.
So I knew a lot of the camera operators because they've been on World Turns. They moved to the West Coast.
That's cool.
So it was just a really nice atmosphere. And it had been at that point, what, 4, 5, 6 years since World Turns went off. But it was like putting on an old comfortable jacket.
Mhm.
I was like, oh,
Sure.
I remember this. I love the pace of this. Uh, so it was a fun gig. It really was.
Neat. And I don't want to be touch on something difficult here. You've
Uh-oh.
done a few shows, primetime shows, guest starring roles, since as the world turns went off the air. Um, I don't know if you're very choosy about your roles, or because you live in New York, are you having trouble getting roles in the West Coast, or are just doing the plays now and you don't care as much about doing
Oh, no.
prime time?
You know, I think I think it's very challenging to sort of plan an acting career in the way you might be able to plan some other careers. It's not necessarily like I'm going to work my way up from the mailroom through middle management
Right.
and get to the CEO. And here's what I have to do, and I have to work extra hours. But it doesn't quite work out like that. I think when I moved to the West Coast right after I got married. So this is about a year, 2 years after World Turns in it. And I did some episodics out there, some big ones too, the NCIS and all this
Yeah,
sort of
no, I
stuff.
saw, yeah.
They were great. I found once my son was born, I found I didn't want, nothing against LA, but I didn't want to raise him out there. And
Right.
my wife's family was all on the East Coast. She's from Long Island. And I thought, I want to get back to New York. And once we moved back here, I think I spent a lot of time really focused on my family because like I said, I added a daughter, and I didn't want to go away for long lengths of time. And I focused on that. And I think not too long after that, COVID happened in the strike.
Right. Yeah.
So I think that kind of threw everything out of whack. The way it works out here more than I would say the West Coast is when people do stuff on stage on the East Coast, like the casting directors come to see it.
Ah,
They come to see it and they go, okay, I'm gonna bring them in to do Blue Bloods or like Maisel, like something
right.
like that. And so I think when theater was on a break, it was harder to get those opportunities. So I'm not choosy in that sense. It's more I think because of world events, I started focusing more of my efforts up here. I'm not retired,
No, no.
but I think this became, I think, more fulfilling and also kept me closer to my family than going off for long stints somewhere else.
Right. Well, like you
I'm
said
not
to me
opposed.
earlier, it's what you love. You get to do what you love.
Yeah, it is what I love, absolutely. And but it's also you know, now that I'm like casting people, I understand how this works. So much of it is just staying in people's minds because there's people that I love that I've worked with and like 5 years ago, and I go, oh my God, I totally forgot such and such. They'd be perfect for this, but I completely forgot.
Wow.
And so it's really staying in people's consciousness more than it is I kind of work in it or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And part of what I'm doing here does keep me in people's consciousness in that way.
That's good.
So yeah.
I hope I didn't overstep with that question. I
Oh
don't want
no,
to sound like, why
no,
aren't you
not at all.
working where I can see you on TV? You know?
Well, it's such a weird business, and I decided too. And a lot of people talk. If you go out to LA, and this is for, I mean, every actor at some point in every year thinks I'm never going to work again.
Right.
At least once a year they think that. But in LA, I found that there are actors who've been sitting and waiting by the phone for years, and they never go off and do theater, or they never leave, or they never do anything like that because they don't want to miss an opportunity. And I don't want to live like that.
No.
I like doing this. I don't like sitting by the phone. The beach is nice, but it's so what, I can do that for a day and then I'm done. I want to go work. So I much prefer this. Yeah.
Okay, well, good. That's good. And a lot of actors have their what they call almost stories, roles that they almost got. Do you have any of those that you'd like to share?
Huh. I think
I don't mean to put you in the spot again.
no, it's so funny because I just saw, you made me think about it. There's a lot of actors that live up here, like Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. Matt Damon just moved up here. Carrie Coon just moved up here. But Jeremy Sisto's up here, and he was just at the reading we did with David Harbour, and I met him a couple of times. He's a really nice guy.
Oh, he's great.
And he was in an interview just like this, where they said anything that you regret or you missed out. And I think he was up to play Jack Dawson in Titanic or something like that. And I don't know if he lost it or if he turned it. I don't remember what had happened, but it's an interesting question. I would say the almost role, and I don't know how close I got, was because this guy lives up here too, Michael Kelly. When Netflix started doing their own content, no one took them seriously because all they were at the time was, I get my DVDs in the mail, I watch it, and I turn it back in. And the first thing it was Game of Cards, right? Spacey and all those guys. And so I went in to audition for this guy called Stemper, who I was like, I don't know who this is. It looks like a very interesting story. But they didn't have their act together quite yet. Like I read with a very young casting director who couldn't read. And so I was like, all right, I'm not sure where this is going to go. And it turned out to be, and like I said, I don't know if I was close on this, but it turned out to be Stemper was the kind of assistant to Kevin Spacey in this. This guy, you'll know who he is, Michael Kelly, if you see him, because he's in Marvel now and all this sorts of things. But it's his assistant who's always battling alcoholism and does all kinds of sneaky things behind. It would have been a great Henry role because he's always doing sneaky things behind the scenes. He's kind of the fixer for the president. I'm glad Michael got it because he was way better at it than I would have been. He brought a real sort of gravitas to it. But I think that's one I would have loved to have gotten if he hadn't gotten it. If it was somebody else, that's what I would have liked. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would have been good. But you've like I said, you've done some wonderful roles since then, even though they were just guest starring roles.
Yeah, I have, and I mean, I think probably I would say, I mean, Homeland was great, and Maisel was, I mean, talk about a fun place to work. When you're on a show where everybody knows it's a hit, and they're getting a lot of money from the wherever because they know it's a hit, everyone's happy.
Yeah.
It's just a great vibe. I think Homeland was the coolest because it was the first season, and they didn't know if they had a hit yet. But I came in late enough in the process that was the great actor who plays the vice president in that, or did for a while. Anyway, he kind of took me aside. I recognize him from a lot of great movies, and he was talking to me, and he said, "You know what? I think this is gonna be a hit." I was like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, I think this is something." Oh, cool. I have Mandy Patinkin and Claire Danes and everything, but you never know. You never know what people are going to respond to.
Right.
So that was a lot of fun, and then I did 2 NCISs, and the NCIS LA was fun. I got to get beat up by LL Cool J. That was a blast. But the mothership, as they say, was so great because Mark Harmon just runs a tight ship, and he's just a cool guy.
Yeah.
And he was always, checking on me. I died twice in that show. So
that's right.
The first time I died, I'm down on the ground, and they're doing these long takes where I have to not breathe and stuff like this. And they pan up to everybody doing their investigation, standing over me. And every time they yelled cut, Mark would just put his hand on my shoulder and go, "You all right? You doing okay?" And I mean, it was just, it's stuff you don't have to do, but if you're he's a good leader. He's an old quarterback from wherever, USC. He's a good leader. And you felt like you were in good hands because the guest star stuff, you pop in.
Yeah.
And everyone's been doing it for a while, and they all have their own rhythms. I remember this being on World Turns. I was there for 10 years, and people would come in for a recurring, and they felt like, where do I go? And do I fit in? And all this kind of stuff. And unless someone comes and takes you under their wing, Brosnan, what's her name from Maisel did the same thing with me.
Oh, nice. Rachel.
Yeah, when that happens, it makes such a huge difference, even if it's like 30 seconds to make you feel you're cool. It's cool. Hey, I'm so and so. Glad you're here.
Oh,
so when that happens, because guest starring can be tricky.
Yeah,
it can be really tricky.
And you got to play a dual role on NCIS, right?
Yeah, originally they were going to cast 2 people, and then they decided, no, let's just make them up and do it 2 different ways. I tried to get paid twice; they wouldn't do it. No. But it was fun. I got to die twice. How fun was that? I got to shoot myself, and then I got stabbed in a toilet. I mean, that's great. That's why you go to acting school.
Resume.
Yeah. It was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Okay, and I know there have been some As the World cast Zoom calls with fans. I was on one of them. Have you kept in touch with the other cast members besides that?
A lot. I mentioned Michael.
Yeah.
Michael's just one of those guys that I just pick up the phone and it's like no time has passed. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I just talked to him a couple of days ago. I'm trying to hire someone that was a stage manager for him a little while back, and she had Michael on her resume. I was like, "Hey, who is this person?" And he filled me in, and it was great. Terry, every now and then, Terry she's doing all the QVC stuff, but she's down in Pennsylvania, so our paths don't cross as much. Right. And just like me, she's got like a brood of children, so it's it's like when do you get a chance to really go and hang out?
Well, now Pennsylvania is not that far.
You're right. You're right. You're not. It's not that
I
far.
give you a hassle. I'll hassle you on her behalf.
Yeah, yeah.
She can come visit you too, so you know.
Yeah, she could visit me too. No, but I love Terry. Terry was my first friend in daytime, and still my partner in crime. I Katie McLean is now down in Pleasantville, so I see her a lot. John Lindstrom. One of the coolest things that I got some folks together for a reading, and I had Jennifer Farren, who is just one of my favorite actors in the world.
I'm sorry, I missed that last one. Who is it?
Jennifer Farren.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I did a fundraising reading. It's the Stars and Strikes, which is an event they have in New York City every year. Yeah, Bradley Cole plays music and things like that. So I asked Michael and Jennifer to read with me on a show, and they were terrific.
Nice.
And then the coolest one actually is Roger Holworth, because Roger and I, our storylines only mixed a few times over the years. And you know, we were friendly and cordial. We didn't really have a relationship. And then when I moved to Katona, it turns out his family is like 30 minutes north of here.
Oh.
And so we started spending more time like his dad and stuff. And then he just out of the blue, I hadn't spoken to him in a few years, said, "You want to grab coffee?" I was like, "Sure." And it's so nice. Like we have this whole really great friendship now, which I really appreciate. So I do. Oh, and of course, Colleen and I talk, especially since she got back on daytime. I'm so happy for her. I'm so thrilled for her. She's having the time of her life. So
yeah, fans are really glad to see her back.
Yeah, they should be. They should be. She's terrific.
Yeah. That's good. And daytime is one thing that's nice about daytime is not only did they value the other daytime actors on other shows, but they value older actors, you know, that maybe other like primetime wouldn't necessarily.
You're absolutely right. I think it goes back to that generational thing. Like you said, people grow up with them. They still want to see them, 30, 40 years on. And it's a special thing that the daytime does have. You're right.
And so what do you miss most about acting on the soaps?
It was such a, it was a family atmosphere, especially because we were in, the soap was in Midtown Manhattan for decades. And and I came in right at the end of that. And the thing about that, it was great, but people could just leave and they could go like, "Oh, I'm going to go do my banking before I have to shoot my scenes in the afternoon," or whatever. So when they moved it out to this old studio in Brooklyn with this incredible history, I think Esther Williams' pool from those old swimming movies were buried under it. Don Hastings said he was out there when he was a child doing, I can't remember, it was like Shirley Temple or somebody, or Fred Astaire. So I think the Cosby Show was filmed out there. So there was all this history, but it was kind of in the middle of nowhere, Brooklyn, way out in Brooklyn. So everyone had to sort of stay put. And some people really resented it. And I kind of liked it because that was like our second home, and people hung out there and spent time there. I also miss being I felt like I was part of like the A team, like folks I worked with, like we always had a really high game standard. Like no one, you can play around all you want outside of work. When you come in, it's like, you come in, you know your stuff, you your tail, and you give yourself, you give 100%. And I love, like I saw Martha do this once years ago. She was sort of joking around with somebody as they were counting down to this very big scene she had. And then she went from 0 to 100 emotionally and everything like that. And it was incredibly powerful. And she was there. She was all there. And they said, cut. And then she took a minute and she was out. And she was back to being just Martha. That kind of precision and that kind of control and being able to just go all the way and then stop. Because a lot of times in other fields, especially true in film, of which I haven't done a ton of, people need a lot of time and this kind of stuff, and it gets very indulgent. And daytime, like we got an hour of television to do a day. And so people had to be responsible and they had to be accountable and they had to be dedicated in a way that we didn't have time for egos.
Right.
And and I love that. I love the speed of it. I get in trouble with the theater stuff sometimes because I move really fast.
Oh.
And sometimes the theater folks are like, hey, I kind of want to figure this out. And I'm like, all right, well, let's figure it out and then let's get on our feet and do it. So I like moving quickly.
That's funny.
So yeah, I miss that aspect of it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And not all actors can handle the speed of daytime. I can think of at least one example where a very famous actress from primetime soaps came in to do a role on Young and the Restless, and she had to leave. She's like, I can't take this. I mean, she was older too, but still, it was like too much for her. And I imagine that
You're absolutely right. I think it's a little skill set that you either have or you don't, or you learn very quickly. That doesn't make you like the best actor or the worst actor or anything.
Right.
It's just a specific skill set. It's like someone who can act really well, but isn't the best singer. So, you know, I know some incredible actors who probably wouldn't be very good at daytime. Yeah, it's a special little thing.
Okay. Well, do you have anything else you'd like to say to your fans, soap fans, potential donors to your play, or potential people who want to come watch it?
Sure. So the play is scheduled to open on October 25th, runs for a couple of weeks. And if you're going to donate, thank you. If you're a fan, thank you. Even if you don't donate, thanks for sticking with daytime. It was it's been an amazing journey. The way that it impacted, as I said at the beginning of the interview, impacted people's families in a way that most shows don't. And I'm proud to be a part of people's lives that way. You know, when I started, I was just a journeyman actor. You know, I was doing a gig, and then over time, I realized how special this is. And thanks for letting me be a part of that, I think was what I would say. It's a really cool thing to be a part of. Not a lot of people can say that. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm gonna stop recording and then I have a question for you.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
It's a great interview. Thank you.
Oh, and